Manchester United are the champions of Europe again.
Hello and welcome back to another One United podcast. I'm joined as ever by Henry. Henry, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. You?
I'm good, yeah, not bad at all. Excited for this one. And we're joined today by Conor. Conor's a journalist who specialises in Italian football, I think I'm right in saying. So, Conor, how are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thanks. Specialise is a very generous word, so thanks for that.
Well, we'll move on then. So today's episode, we wanted to sort of welcome the signing of Amad Diallo, which I believe that the signing goes through on the 1st of January. So we just wanted to sort of figure out what he's all about because we've not really heard much about him. So we thought who better to ask than Conor. So just to start things off then, Conor, where has Amad... Well, actually, I want to clear one thing up. What is his name? Is it Amad Diallo or Amad Traore?
He is known on all of the registration forms as Amad Diallo Traore, but he calls himself Amad Diallo, and on his 18th birthday, basically as soon as it was legally possible to do so, he dropped the Traore from his name. And I would imagine that next season, once new registration forms have been submitted, the Traore is just not going to be part of his name anymore. So I'd very much go with what he wants and call him Amad Diallo.
Well, glad we cleared that up. But yeah, just to start things off then, where did he come from? Because this is a name before Fabrizio Romano gave us the Here We Go in the summer. I'd never heard of him before. So is he a big up-and-coming name in Italy, or is he genuinely just come out of the blue?
Atalanta have a knack for producing these really, really talented youngsters. And he's someone that, as an Atalanta fan and as a journalist based in Italy, I've been aware of his potential for quite a long time. And he's kind of a victim to the system that Atalanta play because he's a winger. He likes to have a starting position being very, very wide and then drifting inwards from there. And in the system that Gianpiero Gasparini plays with Atalanta, there's just not a place for him in that team. It's kind of like with Isco at Real Madrid, right? That position that he plays doesn't exist. So he's a little bit unfortunate in that regard. And I do think that if Atalanta played with two wingers, he would probably be playing a lot more regularly. It's a guy with enormous talent, but he's played less than the equivalent of one match worth of minutes in Serie A over the last 2 seasons. He's got, I think it's 35 minutes this season and 24 over 3 games last season. So he's someone that not a lot of people can claim to have seen him firsthand, but he's definitely someone that a lot of people are aware of the potential of.
So that was a concern for me sort of prior to signing. Obviously, there was a lot of news regarding his lack of minutes. So that definitely is then sort of he's a victim of the system rather than he's just not quite good enough to get in that Atalanta first team.
Yeah, it's 100% that. Atalanta captain Papu Gomez did during lockdown. I'm sure you guys know Christian Vieri. Basically, he became famous on Instagram, even with non-football fans, because every night he was doing a series of live Instagram stories, just interviewing all of his old mates from football and stuff. And he got Papu on one evening, and Papu was just talking about there's this kid in the academy, and he trains with the first team, and the defenders hate him because the first team defenders can't get near him, so they have to foul him to stop him. And Papu, who's Argentinian and has played with Messi for the national team, said he plays like Messi. And when you watch, I'm sure you guys and most United fans probably went onto YouTube and typed in his name as soon as the transfer was announced for almost 40 million euro combined total. But yeah, he very much is. He favors his left foot, but I would say he's more capable of using his right foot than most left-footed players would be. He's very much just unfortunate that Atalanta don't play with a winger. And I think if the United move hadn't surfaced until next summer, there would probably be a lot more hype around him because he was on the verge of joining Parma, where I actually live. So I was very excited about this. Following in the footsteps of Dejan Kulusevski, who went on loan to Parma from Atalanta in the summer of 2019, and then got signed by Juve because he impressed on the right wing. I kind of expected to see Diallo do the same thing, but then the transfer to Parma mysteriously fell apart, and then United suddenly came along. So it now seems like the reason Atalanta backed out of the deal that was everything but confirmed with Parma, because United came along with big money, and their model exists because they sell players, so they couldn't turn it down. But I think he's definitely someone to be excited about. I wouldn't read too much into the fact that he hasn't played too many minutes.
Well, we'll come on to his transfer fee later, because obviously that's caused a bit of a stir. But what exactly is Amad Diallo good at? Because obviously we know he's a tricky winger, but is he a goal scorer, a dribbler, a hybrid of multiple things? What would you say his specific game is?
He is a hybrid. I would say that his biggest weakness is probably his finishing at the moment, just from what I've seen. But he's a winger with the footwork of a 10, because he's got this incredible acceleration where he can go from 0 to 60 like that before anybody has noticed that he's even moved his feet. He's past them. But he's also, like, usually if a player is quick, they can lean on that as a crutch, and their footwork can suffer as a result. But Diallo's just as good in tight spaces as he is if he's taking someone on one-on-one. There's so many examples, like on YouTube even, of him just cutting in from the left because he's so quick to get past his marker, then being crowded out by 3 players and just coming through on the other side of it unscathed, and then slipping a pass into the channels. But I do think his finishing has kind of left me wanting a little bit more. But look, he's 18. That sort of thing will develop. I think even if he loses his pace, if touch wood he doesn't, gets an injury that can take a bit of that out of his game, I think the footwork he has, he's a very adaptable player. He could easily transform into a number 10, which he isn't yet, but who knows, given a bit more time and experience.
So does his sort of creative ability, does that go down the same lines as his finishing, where it could be improved, as in sort of his final product, so that killer ball or his ability to cross the ball, or is that sort of at the standard that you'd expect at this level?
It's quite good. I've been impressed, even in the brief flashes that he's had in the first team, and from what I've seen of the Primavera side, he's got a good through ball, because very often he creates the space that he then passes the ball into. So he'll drift in from either side, and the defender that's supposed to be on that side will come to him. Maybe it's a perk of the system that Atalanta play, that there's always someone exploiting that space. So then Diallo just plays it into open space. I'm not quite sure how fluid United are when they're going forward, and if it will be directly transferable, but I wouldn't have any criticisms of his creativity, no.
And then just moving forward, when he gets to United, obviously a right winger sort of position is something that we've been missing for a number of years now. Do you think, as of right now, he has the ability to step into this United team, or do you think fans need to give it maybe a couple of years before he's really at that level?
In terms of his ability, I think he could be as good as anyone that United have at the moment, but it's his frame that would concern me. He is very, very small. He's 173 centimeters, I think. So what's that? 5'5", 5'6" or something. And he very much looks like a child. Him and his brother, actually, who plays for Sassuolo, he's playing at the moment against Milan. They're both very, very small in stature. And I think despite his strength when he has the ball, he's going to need to bulk up to play any kind of top level football, and particularly England, right? The old cliche is it's a little bit more physical than it is in Italy, and I think he's going to have to be managed intelligently, and I hope he is. I really, really hope he is, because he's got all the ingredients he needs.
Yeah, we all hope he is. Go on, sorry, Henry.
I was just going to ask about. So we've seen all this commotion regarding Sancho and whether he's going to join or whatever. So United made this deal after the Sancho thing completely collapsed. It was midway through-ish. Do you think that's a direct consequence of the Sancho deal collapsing? United thought, right, we're going to move on to this guy instead. Do you reckon Diallo is going to come instead of Sancho, or do you reckon United need to give him plenty of time to get into the first team and get ready, or is he, potentially going to be, the new Sancho?
I think he could be. He's still only 18, and he's only got an hour of Serie A under him, so it's very hard to to link him to someone like Jadon Sancho, who's got a bit of experience in the Bundesliga behind him. But I don't think he was signed just because they didn't get Sancho. United were watching both Diallo and Dejan Kulusevski over the last year. So he's very much someone that they had tabs on. You know, they were monitoring him. They were interested in him. And I think they probably paid more than they otherwise would have needed to because the Sancho thing fell through. They had this extra money that they needed to get someone in, maybe to appease the fans. I mean, you guys will know better than me, but United's transfer dealings under Woodward haven't exactly filled you with a lot of confidence. So, and Atalanta are quite savvy when it comes to discussing terms and getting money for their players. So I think it was a case of Atalanta saw Woodward coming a mile away and they said, oh, you want him? Okay, well, these other clubs want them too, so give us 40 million. and Woodward just bit, probably. But
is there any reason why it happened so it happened in the summer, and to be fair, when it was announced, it wasn't announced at first that he was going to come in January. We thought, okay, right, we've got a signing now that we can just put into the first team and, you know, raring to go. We need a winger. Why was the deal delayed? Do you know why it was delayed from the summer to January? Was there any politics involved?
Yeah, this is Italy, right? So bureaucracy is always a problem. But Diallo's passport was an issue. Basically, okay. It ties into the name thing. There were some I don't want to use the word problems, but there were some uncertainties or question marks around his family, particularly with his father, and he couldn't get an Italian passport. He's now got an Italian passport in the last week, which is why it's now been confirmed that, well, not confirmed yet because he still needs to get a work permit for the UK with Brexit and everything happening. So it's more than likely that it will get done in January now. But yeah, that was the reason for the hold up, really.
Right, perfect. Just wanted to clear that.
Just building on the transfer fee then that we were talking about. So, you know, realistically, is this a good deal for Atalanta or is this a good deal for United? And do you think he will ever live up to a £40 million price tag? Because, you know, I get there's a lot of inflated sums, but that's still a lot of money to pay for a player, isn't it?
It's huge money to pay for a player who had 24 minutes of first team football under his belt. You know, it's about 20 million up front and then an extra give or take 20 with bonuses and all of these clauses that are now inserted. But yeah, it's one of those. It could work out to be a very good deal for both teams because 40 million euro for a Premier League side is very different to 40 million euro for a Serie A side, particularly Atalanta. So I think that 40 million euro for United is more expendable than it is possible for Atalanta to turn down that sum, if I'm making sense there. But if somebody offers Atalanta 40 million euro for more or less any player they have on their first team, with the exception of probably Duvan Zapata, they accept it. So if someone's offering that money for a kid who's played 24 games and doesn't have a place in the team, it's a no-brainer. I think they probably would have taken 25, 30 million if push came to shove as well.
Where do you think this transfer fee came from then, if we're saying that they probably could have got him cheaper? Do you think that's just poor bargaining from Manchester United, or do you think it's desperation, or do you think they genuinely do you think Atalanta genuinely value him at 40 million euros?
I think they value him very, very highly. I'm not sure 40 million euros will be how highly they value him, given like all the things I've said, right? He doesn't have a place in the team at the moment, and it doesn't look like Gasparini's going to be leaving anytime soon. But I think it probably just comes down. And again, I don't feel quite comfortable saying this because I'm not an expert on Manchester United, but it probably comes down to the fact that they can't negotiate. I mean, we've seen them operate very, very badly in the transfer window before. So I wouldn't be half surprised if it was just down to inadequacies on United's part.
Yeah, I don't think that'd surprise any United fan. Now, just moving forward to when he gets here then, obviously there's not much evidence from the first team at Atalanta, but how would United set up their team to get the best out of Amad Diallo?
Let him play on the right. Basically, if it's a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3, I mean, there's a natural position for him there. And because he likes operating initially on the right, but almost fulfilling the role of like an inside forward, right? He loves coming in. When he gets the ball, it seems like his natural movement is to drift inside. and then he can burst back outside quite quickly and quite easily. But ideally, on the right of a front three or of a three playing behind a one, I think would be perfect for him.
If we dive a bit deeper, then obviously, sorry, Henry, I'll come to you after it. Obviously, United are notorious now for enjoying to play on the counter attack. Now, do you think Amad Diallo can fit in with this? Obviously, he's got the speed to do it, but it's not all about pure pace, is it?
No, it's not. It is. There is a lot of discipline involved with a counter attacking team, and that's just something that I haven't seen him do. But because of the way Atalanta play at all levels, they like to very much play on the front foot. So I'm sure he would be able to adapt to a new system, given that he's 18 and he's not really. I mean, he hasn't got a leg to stand on. If a coach tells him to counterattack, he has to counterattack. It's not like he's Messi rocking up to a new club, you know. But I have noticed in the brief flashes that I've seen of him that he does like to be as direct as possible. So it might be a case where he could grow frustrated playing in a counter-attacking team, and it wouldn't necessarily get the best out of him, but he'd be very much suited to, in the process of the counter-attack, in possession. Yeah, I mean, he's perfect for that.
I was going to ask, as of at the moment, obviously, you mentioned about how United are quite poor in the transfer market. We've seen it for years and years. It's so frustrating. Who does this deal make more sense to, in terms of, who's going to benefit more out of this? And are we overpaying for him, do you reckon? Obviously, we haven't seen much of him, but have we overpaid again for a player?
I don't know any other clubs that would spend that money on someone with 24 minutes of professional football behind him. I really, really don't. I'm reluctant to say that you've overpaid, because I can't emphasize enough how highly thought of he is at Atalanta. They really, really have a lot of hope for him, or had a lot of hope for him before this deal happened. The fact that they were going to loan him to Parma suggested that they were happy to have him cut his teeth in Serie A with a club that they've built up a relationship of trust with, and then come back to Atalanta or be sold on after that year with Parma. But I wouldn't say you have overpaid yet, but it's hard to imagine another club would have paid that much money given the circumstances.
Then I've only got one more question before I hand it over to Henry for the rest of the episode. But there's, I think it was Papu Gomez who labelled him as someone who could become the next Messi. I believe he said something along those lines, or he's very similar to Messi now. Do you realistically think that's true? Do you think United have got a generational talent on their hands, or do you think it'll just sort of be a good Premier League player?
I think he could be a very, very good Premier League player. The Messi thing was, it was in that late night Instagram live with Christian Vieri, where he was just basically praising what Diallo's good at. He said he's quick, he can move the ball, he's great with his feet, he plays like Messi. I think it was possibly something that was lost in translation. It wasn't the fact that Gomez said he is the next Messi. It was more that he has a similar playing style to Messi, and he's difficult to stop in the same way that Messi is. I think a lot of people, when they see Messi or Ronaldo mentioned in the same breath as another player, they say, oh, this guy's the next him, but he could well be a generational talent. And the excitement that has existed around him would suggest that a lot of people who know him a lot better than most would have the confidence that he could go on to become a generational talent. Yeah.
Who would you liken him to in the Premier League? Obviously, we just mentioned Messi, which is, I think, a stretch now. Who would you liken him to in terms of players that are people that are watching this will know potentially in the Premier League, or are there none?
I in the Premier League, I mean, you've kind of hit me with something a little bit out of my comfort zone. But from what I've seen of Raheem Sterling, I wouldn't say that those comparisons wouldn't be too far off, right? Sterling's someone who lightning quick, obviously, and who often has his technical ability quite overlooked. He's a brilliant player. Otherwise, he wouldn't be playing for a Pep Guardiola team. And yeah, I don't know enough about Premier League clubs to compare him to anyone, but Sterling, I think wouldn't be too far amiss.
No centre of gravity then, kind of really like almost glued to the floor, but glued to the ball as well.
Yeah, that's exactly it, and it's what I was trying to talk about earlier when I was saying that he's very good at shifting inside and getting out of tight spaces. The ball does look like it's glued to his foot. He's very good at dribbling, and I think that's probably something that is from the fact that he's predominantly left-footed, but very comfortable with his right as well. So when he's dribbling, he's not necessarily leaning on one foot, which a lot of players do, particularly pacey wingers. But yeah, he's very good at shifting his weight from one foot to the other as well. So he could appear to be going one way, and the next thing he's going back the other. I guess maybe Riyad Mahrez in that Leicester title-winning season was quite good at doing similar things. He'd almost sell players a dummy by going one way and then cutting back the other. But yeah, I don't know if I answered your question there. Sorry.
No, that makes perfect sense. In regards to him, I'm just trying to think of, we as United, we pride ourselves on. I guess we pride ourselves on counter-attacking. We obviously want to be able to do build-up play and stuff like that. But this season has been purely counter-attacking, and we need a right-sided player. I know he's only played 24 minutes, but do you reckon there's a chance that he'll get to United and we'll go, right, we have to throw him in the first team because we can't play Greenwood there. He's not really quick enough, I don't think. Do you reckon there's a chance? Obviously, you mentioned his size might be an issue, but we've seen players that are quite small that are able to kind of play in the Premier League. But do you reckon United might just throw him straight in the deep end?
I hope if he does play, it's not because United are desperate for a quick fix. I hope that if he plays, it's because Solskjaer thinks this guy can make a difference. And in terms of what I've seen from him, he definitely can. He has the ability to change games and to change how teams' fortunes are going. But yeah, he's good enough. I mean, defending isn't all that great anywhere at the moment. He could tear any defense apart across Europe, I'd imagine. But he's definitely good enough to make a difference at United. But I'm not 100% sure about his physical makeup. He looks like a child. You'll see it yourself. And even though you know that, every time you see him coming onto the pitch, you think, oh God, he is small. It's like parental instincts almost kick in, and you're kind of thinking, oh no, I hope he doesn't get hurt. But he is stronger than he looks, particularly when he's got the ball. Players do struggle to knock him off or to get to overpower him to win the ball back. So he's deceptive in that way. But I just want him to bulk up a little bit, just to have that frame to be a bit more almost reassuring. Even players like Messi, right? If you remember when Messi broke onto the scene, he looked like a teenager, which he was, but he very much looked like a teenager, which footballers don't often do. Kulusevski's another one. When he first came through at Parma, he was like a gangly teen that looked like he had just finished his second last year of school. And then after 2 or 3 months of playing in Serie A, he looked like he had an adult's body with just a child's face. And I would hope that Diallo, maybe there's going to be a different training regime. There's probably emphasis on different aspects of physical work in England than there would be in Italy. So yeah, if he can bulk himself up a little bit and just broaden those shoulders, yeah, why not? Get him straight in.
I've got a couple of questions more. One, the last one I'll ask is completely unrelated to United, but United might be interested in regards. It's about Papu Gomez, the last one, and the first one is, in terms of Serie A players, you obviously watch a lot of youngsters come through the ranks in terms of clubs. Who do you think? I know this might throw you in the deep end a little bit. You don't have to answer it. Who do you think is a real talent coming through? Seeing Kulusevski come through at Juventus, do you reckon there are any other players that we need to watch out for in terms of up-and-coming talent in Serie A?
Kulusevski is the standout for me, and I watched them. I'm fortunate enough to have probably watched them more than anyone last season because I was at every single Parma home game, with the exception of against Spal, because there were only 5 journalists or something allowed in, so we couldn't get into that one. But every time I went to the Tardini and Kulusevski played, I just watched him. It didn't matter what was happening anywhere else. Just with and without the ball, he's so intelligent, and he plays like somebody who's been playing in the Champions League for 10 years. His confidence is incredible. His decision making is 99% of the time spot on. You know, he rarely does something where you think, you shouldn't have passed that there, or you shouldn't have shot there. Whereas with a lot of young players, in every game, they have one example of them making a bad decision. But Kulusevski's, he's cut from a different cloth to most people. And if you watch Juve now, you can see just how highly Cristiano Ronaldo rates him, because every time Ronaldo gets the ball, he looks for Kulusevski. And this is a guy who's played with the very best footballers in the world, right? And has known to be selfish, has been known to be selfish as well. But he has complete backing, or complete trust in Kulusevski. Other than that, I think the young Norwegian kid at Milan, Hauge, I haven't seen too much of him because this is only his first season and he's not been starting all that regularly. But he looks like someone that, I mean, Norwegian football fans could get really excited about, particularly with Odegaard and Haaland already there. That they could have a really exciting batch coming through. But Hauge and Kulusevski would be the first two that spring to mind. Yeah. Other than that, like you said, put me on the spot a little bit. Diallo, I'll say it just to make you guys happy, right? Amad Diallo's in there too.
And the final thing is on a kind of unrelated subject, but a lot of fans will want to know what's going on at Atalanta in regards to Papu Gomez, because I've seen he's been kicked out of the squad essentially for their game today. Fell out with the manager. We've heard it from Fabrizio. What's happened here? Because he's so highly thought of at Atalanta, and a lot of Premier League fans know him maybe from FIFA or whatever, but he's a fantastic player. So what's going on there?
It seems to be an Atalanta dressing room secret. You know, there's an official line that has been allowed to become known, which is that during the Midtjylland game in the Champions League, Gasparini asked him to play on the right and he said no. And it wasn't like a big fight or a big coming together. It was just an instinctive, Gasparini said something during a match and Papu just said no, you know, but because the stadium was empty, it became a big story. But then at halftime, the arguments continued and Papu didn't come out for the second half. And everyone just thought, right, it's a congested schedule. Papu's being rested, blah, blah, blah. But then since then, obviously, it's become a little bit more of an issue. It does look like the relationship has completely broken down, which is a massive, massive shame, because Papu and Gasparini are the two people, more so than anyone other than the president, Antonio Percassi. Those two, they are the guys responsible for Atalanta being what they are now. Gasparini created the system, and Papu he's carried them. They've had some really, really good players, and I don't want to diminish anything that any of the players have done, but if it wasn't for Papu Gomez, they wouldn't be playing in the Champions League for the second season in a row. They wouldn't have probably qualified for the Europa League. He is the one that brings something that nobody else can bring to that team. And it does, unfortunately, as things stand, it looks like it's coming to an end. I wouldn't be completely ruling out that they could patch things up, because Gasparini is someone that everybody falls out with. He's a very, very spiky character. You see it, like, basically everybody that supports teams that he's not in charge of hates him. Every other coach has a fight with him. He seems to be quite a combative guy and quite difficult to get along with. And they've spoken even before this feud. I think it was either Gasparini or Papu. I think it was Gasparini had said in the last couple of months that, yeah, like me and Papu fight all the time. We always have our arguments, but it's all right in the end, you know? So this one just seems to be a little bit bigger than the others have been. And it's a shame. It's a shame. There's a lot of people as well. I think this is just a symptom of social media now, but there's a lot of fans coming out and saying that nobody's bigger than the club. This isn't the behavior of a captain, but nobody knows what's happened, right? Nobody knows the reality of what's happened. And Papu has been, for the last 3 years, talking about how he wants to stay with Atalanta. In the last year, he turned down €8 million a year to move to Saudi Arabia to stay in Bergamo for, I think, 1.2 million a year or something. So it would have been a huge increase in his salary. And just 6 weeks ago, he was talking about how he's got a contract for 3 more years and he wants to see that out. And then he wants to have a role at the club after his playing days, and he wants to stay in Bergamo forever. And now it's come to this in the space of 6 weeks. So I'm hoping, maybe stupidly, that it's still just very raw at the moment and that an agreement can be found. But as things stand, it does look like he's going to be on his way. But officially, nobody really knows the extent of what happened, other than there was a fight in the dressing room at halftime against Midtjylland.
Perfect. I just wanted to figure that out. Thank you.
But hands off, okay? I mean, leave him alone. Leave him alone.
Well, while you were talking, I've thought of one more question, and then we'll wrap it up. So United historically, more recently than historically, I should say, they've started having problems with personalities within the squad. Now, I know it's early days and he's only 18, but do you know of any possible sort of difficulties we may have with Amad Diallo's personality, or is he quite general? Like, is he a bit of a team player, quite easygoing, or is he going to be sort of a Sanchez part 2?
There's absolutely no indication that there's any problems with his personality at all.
Okay.
I mean,
great.
There's nothing more I could say about it. There's nothing.
All right. Well, that's a relief. But yeah, we'll call it a day there then. Conor, it's been brilliant to talk to you. You've been very insightful, and we look forward to taking your hottest prospect off your hands. So sorry about that.
Just treat him nicely, guys. All right. Thanks. It was a pleasure.
We'll do our best.
Emery, as ever, thanks for joining me, and thanks to everyone watching. We should have another episode out in a couple of days, but until then, we'll see you next time.